Hey everyone, it's been a while since I have live streamed on YouTube, so sorry for a little bit of the delay. I was just checking to make sure that everything was synced up and working correctly, and it looks like we are good. Someday I'm just going to get StreamYard and make my life a whole lot easier with all of this. I know that you'd have to pay each month in order to get it, but I've seen a lot of people use it and they seem to be relatively happy with it. So maybe someday. But for right now, fact is, I don't have that many subscribers. So if it's just you, it's me, we'll keep it simple. And with that, but what I'm doing is I wanted to celebrate my book, The Dryad's Crown, has made it through the ringer to become one of the SPIFBO 10 books for this year. Now, for those who don't know, SPFBO, pronounced SPIFBO, is the self-published fantasy blog off, which is an annual book challenge. They accept 300 books, which get divided between 10 bloggers who focus on fantasy fiction. Each of the 10 bloggers get 30 books that they then narrow down to one with the finalists, and then between those remaining 10 books, all of those blogs read them to try and narrow it down to the one that will win. It's an interesting competition. This year was kind of a big deal because normally they were doing sort of a first come, first serve situation, but since the previous year, all the slots had filled up within about the first 45 minutes. They decided, to be fair to people in other time zones, that they would do 24 hours, just open. Everyone who wants to submit their book can. And then if it fits in the qualifications, the first book in a series, you haven't submitted the book in previous years, things like that. But anyway, what they did was they just accepted for 24 hours, and then they randomly selected 300 books from that. And there were 600 books total that were submitted, so it was a proverbial coin flip. And yeah, my book got to be one of them. It will be featured in the Before We Go blog with 29 other really well-deserving great books. I've already looked through some of them, and yeah, I don't envy the bloggers because they have some hard choices ahead of them. But what I wanted to do, I thought it would be a little bit fun, is we'll just do a little live reading from here. I posted on Twitter to see if anyone would select a page, just a random page for me, and I have not gotten any responses yet. So we're going to do the old tried and true fashion of just flipping to a page and we will read. So we will start on page 280. So let me see here. Oh, this is hilarious because earlier today I did a random flipping and I got to the exact same page. There must be something about this page that it makes me want to come to it. This, I believe, is from chapter 4, as they are approaching the city of Aberton. They're sailing Tuenia Bay to Aberton. And this is Silbury with her allies Abec and Oren. But obviously I'm not going to give you 280 pages worth of backstory. We will just start reading. With another incantation, Abec disappeared from Silbury's side and reappeared next to the whipstaff. He grabbed onto it and pulled hard to the other side, but Tuenia Bay did not want to yield control to the mage. 2 soldiers joined Abec to right the ship. It didn't matter. The spinning caused the sail to catch the wind all wrong, and they were moving backward. The water piled up against the stern. A wave crashed onto the ship and held it down. The ship's after castle and cabins took on water, raising the bow into the air. Every soldier slid toward the stern and then into the waters. Silbury held onto the knotted line. The ship was sinking, and Silbury did not think she could make the swim to shore. The eastern side of Aberton was farther from the ship. The water swirled and roared. It would be a much harder swim to the east. If anyone survived, they could throw themselves at the mercy of Dahlia. The western side was closer, but Kret's army would be waiting. Silbury let go. She plunged into the water. When she surfaced, she chose to swim to the west and take her chances on the battlefield. Oren and a few of the soldiers were already swimming in that direction. Silbury could not see Abek anywhere. Abek! She called his name again and then again. She heard nothing in response. She looked at the soldiers swimming to the east. Many of them were already struggling. Then she spotted it, Abek's red cape floating on the surface of the water. Silbury closed her eyes and called upon her face senses. Motes of blue light flickered. She focused her thoughts like an incantation. When she held her wooden staff, she held the whole tree. The roots dug into the earth and absorbed the water. The water rained from the sky. It pooled into springs. The spring water traveled like rivers into the ocean. Tuanya Bay was connected to the ocean, which encircled the whole world. She was connected to it all, and she could feel Abek deep in the waters, trapped under the sinking ship, tangled in the netting along the hull. He was struggling to vocalize a spell that could teleport him to the surface. He could not make the necessary sounds under the water. He could not breathe. He could not concentrate. All the while, as the ship sank, it pulled him farther down. Then Silbury could no longer sense him. He was gone, abandoned to the depths. Silbury had not known Abek for long, but she felt a twinge in her chest. She had met him once when he was younger, and then again when she arrived at Sage Hall. Abek was one of the few people who knew her when she had served Dahlia. He had no reason to trust her, and yet he showed her compassion and hospitality. She could repay him by surviving. Silbury opened her eyes and knew what needed to be done. She would have to swim to the shore and fight like hell to get through the breach and protect Aberton. Swimming required every bit of strength she had. Silbury considered her earlier wisecrack about the gods turning her into a fish. She wished they would do her the courtesy again, but no miracles came. Silbury kicked in the water and was thankful she wasn't wearing boots. She had decided it was easier, more comfortable to summon her powers while barefoot. Swimming barefoot was also easier. However, holding her staff and shield while paddling made everything worse. Silbury tried placing the shield underneath her stomach as she swam, hoping it would provide some buoyancy. It worked to a degree. If she put her full weight on it, she sank a little. Her strokes were like that of a newborn foal trying to find its legs, wobbling, stumbling, and afraid of being left behind. But she wasn't about to fight the Knolls empty-handed, so she held on to her shield and staff. The waters were stubborn, even though the currents moved toward the shore. It was a back-and-forth journey of its own pace. No amount of flailing and kicking could get her closer without the current's consent. Once Silbury reached the shore, she would have little energy to fight an army. Her wool clothes absorbed the water, and she became cognizant of the weight. She looked around to see if there was anything floating larger than her shield, a barrel or pallet from the ship, which she could grab onto. Oren and his soldiers were farther ahead. She saw a floating object and made her way over to it. It was a soldier, still a young boy who did not have the strength to continue. He was treading water, trying his best to stay afloat. Occasionally he would go under and then re-emerge in a panic. He saw Silbury and he paddled toward her. "Help!" His voice was hoarse. He gulped too much water. His eyes were bulging and bloodshot. "Please, please help." If Silbury wasn't careful, he might drag her down in the struggles. She would swim around him and leave him to his fate. One drowning was better than two. But she thought of this young soldier's mother. She didn't mean to, but her mind wandered there and remained. If this were her son, if this were her Urig, she would risk everything to save him. She would find the strength. Silbury sighed. Whoever this soldier's mother was, Silbury would honor her and try to bring him home, even though she knew this was a mistake. "Do not swim any closer. I'll come to you," she yelled to the soldier, and he obeyed. "What is your name? Where are you from? She did not ask this because it mattered, but she needed him to pause and calm down. I'm Sven from Golder. Tell me your mother's name. Silbury's hair was once again in her face. Annette. She works as a fortune teller in the market. Silbury resisted any bitter comments about how Annette's cards could have warned her son about this day, but she knew better than to mock a fortune teller. Sven from Golder, I want you to grab the end of my staff. She held it out to him, and he took it. I'm going to pull you to shore, but we're going to work together. I need you to kick with all your strength, and I will swim as well. Can you do that? Sven from Golder nodded. Silbury started swimming to the shore. She was fighting the rough waters, enduring the weight of her wet wool clothes, keeping the shield under her, and pulling this boy behind her. She kept thinking, I'm doing this for Annette. Her heart pounded and muscles contracted. Lungs tightened, twisting inside her. She had pulled herself as much as she could, but she pushed herself as much as she could, but she kept going. There was no other option. Silbury found new strength. The current began working more in her favor, pushing with determination toward the shoreline until she was so close her feet could touch the bottom. She waded through the water and stumbled onto land, falling to her knees. Sven from Golder was still holding on to her staff. The shore sloped up to a rocky field clogged with knolls, pushing toward the west wall and the breach. Aberton's soldiers stood along the walls, greeting all who trudged through the complex series of ditches with a volley of arrows. The dying filled the ditches, writhing like maggots in mortal wounds. Oren and his soldiers were not far off, swords drawn. They were surrounded by gnolls, but they kept fighting, kept a tight formation. Any earlier thoughts of mutiny were gone. The soldiers depended on Oren and his two-handed sword. Silbury and Sven from Golder needed to catch their breath. The gnolls hadn't noticed them at first. A brief mercy. Sven from Golder, I need you to let go of my staff. And he did. Stay close to me, and she noticed he did not have a weapon on him. Her tone changed, like a mother scolding a child for forgetting his morning ablutions. Where is your weapon? Sven from Golder looked out to where the ship had sunk. There, ma'am. Silbury shook her head. Do you prefer a spear, axe, or sword? A spear. Silbury stood up and looked for a spear-wielding gnoll in the pack. Then she saw her target. Silbury braced her staff against her forearm. She held her shield high. When I kill that one, I want you to grab his weapon. And we will stop there. So anyway, let me know if you enjoyed this live reading. We will do more of them as Spiffbo continues throughout this year. I'll give you some more updates. And yes, post in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to read or share or talk about. I'd be happy to. And until next time.